They're loading the horses 2 by 2 for Preakness 150, and there'll be one left over with 9 in the field for what is expected to be a rainy day and what already is turning into a rainy week here in Baltimore. We're at Pimlico. Ron Flatter here with the Hardcore Handicappers pop-up episode of the Ron Flatter Racing Pod, which we do for every Triple Crown race, every Breeders' Cup card. And that means we're here for the Preakness. It's supposed to be the last year here at Pimlico. We'll see. As it is, it's supposed to be rainy, 60% chance thereof on Saturday. We have 9 horses. Journalism is in off the runner-up finish from the Kentucky Derby and off of their own performances in the Kentucky Derby. Let's find out how the hardcore handicappers did. First, the man from DK Horse, who really he was the reason we started betting Kentucky Derby futures. Johnny Avello, did you book Preakness futures back in the day?
For sure. They were up right after the Derby ended, within 10 minutes or so. And then an update on would a horse win the Triple Crown, because that was always a bet that we've had up for years too. But here we are for Preakness, and it's great to be with you guys again. This is of the overall card and Preakness itself, this is probably the most uninspiring of the three, but it is an eminent part of our early horse racing season. So happy to be here, happy to talk about the Preakness, and we'll we'll see. This is a little bit different mode than the Derby was, but I'm still excited about it.
How'd you do on the Derby?
Very well. Journalist would have been better for me. I had him in the futures I got him about a month before the race at about 20 to 1. So that would have been a better score, but it was good. It was a good day for me, and I hope Preakness turns out to be as good.
We can only hope. The man who started Horse Racing Nation with a couple partners and is the boss man at HRN. How boss was he on the Kentucky Derby? Mark Midland, how'd you do?
Oh, it was a fun weekend. I had a lot of struggles for most of 2 days, but then luckily got it all back with the Derby Superfecta. I paid 1,700. We gave out, pretty much most of those horses. Those were all our A horses, and Final Gambit being a long shot, and so that worked out well. I ended up giving out the ticket to some friends as well. And just, you mentioned future wagers. I just want to say we're kind of talking to the future wager guys here because I was involved in starting the Churchill Downs pari-mutuel future wager in 1999, way back when. And then, it was a couple years back, and Ed and I were talking in the office, and Ed said, why isn't there a Preakness future wager? So I gave Peter Otondo a call at first, and he's like, that's a great idea. And to his credit, Peter started the Preakness future wager with a little push from HRN, and we've been doing the morning line from the Preakness future wager ever since it started.
And speaking
Mark, that brings me to something, a quote that relates to this is show me your friends and I'll show you your futures.
and in between showing friends and finding futures, Mark has also been taking a deep dive into numbers for the Preakness, including what he predicted the odds would be before the morning line came out, and frankly, before the betting really starts in earnest for the Preakness, and also how Kentucky Derby horses have done over the past quarter century coming from the Kentucky Derby into the Preakness, and we have 3 of them in this year's field. Mr. Fair Odds, yeah, speaking of numbers that are very popular at Horse Racing Nation, he defines them all the time, and not just for big races, but some that are not so big. But here he is again. And Ed DeRosa, before we get to what you're looking at odds-wise on the Preakness and all the horses in the field, how did you do on the Derby?
I'm happy to say it was my best Derby ever. We're coming in guns blazing to the Preakness, and by Derby, I mean Derby weekend, but some key opinions allowed me to really go for it on Derby and was able to walk away a big winner. So we're not going to let up, though. We never rest on our laurels or our Pimlicos. So we're ready to score this weekend.
All right, and don't sit on your black-eyed Susans because they actually haven't bloomed yet. The dirty little secret here. Black-eyed Susans are actually daisies with the center painted black. Do you know the one year that was an exception, gentlemen?
2020.
Bingo. They had already bloomed by October. Bloomed and kind of get them off the bush there,
Right.
as it were. All right. So enough of the trivia. Let's get to the race itself. We've got 9 horses. We're going to go through them post position by post position, 1 through 9, because, Bob Baffert always gets the 1. We'll start with him in a few moments. But let's go ahead and offer you a chance to use some good handicapping tools that are available at picks.horseracing.nation.com. Mark Midland, take it away.
Yeah, we talked about the Kentucky Derby Super Screener before the Derby, and Mike Shetty just crushed it. Top all his A horses ran 1, 2, 3. Top Long Shot, Final Gambit ran 4th, and just looking at he gave out the trifecta for $1 7 different times and just different recommended tickets, a $20 exacta box, a $15 exacta. Absolutely crushed it. So as I would say, the Super Screener is something for all the big races you want to have, for the Triple Crown races, the Breeders' Cup, and you can get it now. Get the Preakness Super Screener at picks.horseracing.nation.com. It's just a great tool for races like this.
In fact, let me give you a little hint here, because you're listening to the podcast or watching on YouTube. If you go to picks.horseracing.nation.com right now and click where it says Preakness Stakes Super Screener, you'll see right away you can get both the Preakness and the Belmont Stakes Super Screener for $27. And that's it. And go to the bottom of the page if you want to fill in the gaps between the Preakness and the Belmont Stakes. And for that matter, if you're already a satisfied customer, and I know that number is not small, you're probably going to want to find a way to get this all year round if you haven't done so already. And you can find a price that fits your budget. Why not do it right now? Go to Picks, P-I-C-K-S, picks.horseracing.nation.com. Check out the Super Screener. This is the Ron Flatter Racing Pod, the Hardcore Handicappers pop-up episode previewing the Preakness Stakes. A 60% chance of showers on Saturday for the race at 7:01 Eastern Time. And as we look at the card, we see that it is, I believe, the 13th race on the card. It is, of course, a big one, 14 races, $2 million on the line, and 9 3-year-olds are running a mile and 3/16. So let's get to the field. We'll start with post 1. Bob Baffert continues to joke that they put him in the 1, and then they draw the race. He and the Dallas Mavericks both got a 1 when they drew Monday night. I'm going to guess that you don't have a certain Duke player who will be riding for Bob on goal-oriented, but why not have Flavien Prat, who did ride goal-oriented to a victory on Derby Day in an allowance race on the slop, did so by 3/4 of a length, was front-running the whole way. This is a Not This Time colt owned by SF Racing. They couldn't get Rodriguez healthy for the Preakness, so they've got goal-oriented in here. He is 6-1 on the morning line. Baffert has won twice from the 1 hole. Did so 2 years ago with National Treasure and 10 years ago with American Pharaoh, I believe was his name. Ed, what do you think about goal-oriented in the 1?
Probably going to be over bet. People are going to see the undefeated, albeit just 2 starts. Pratt, certainly a lot in his favor in terms of public money. I'm selling the race at Churchill. Brisnet said it was better than the Maiden Breaker. Ragozin disagrees. So I'm gonna lean on the sheets in terms of that one. Definitely would rather see a forward move coming into a race like this with only 2 career starts. I was surprised to see 6-1 on the morning line. That felt shorter than I was expecting, and I wasn't a fan. So certainly not going to be with the lower price than even I was thinking. So going to have to let this one beat me.
Disagreement as to which race was better, the debut victory or whether it was the allowance win. If you're looking for a tiebreaker from the buyers, daily racing form says 91 each. Mark, what do you think about goal-oriented?
Yeah, I'm with that. I'm not really interested in this horse at 6-1. I think it actually could go off lower just because of Bob Baffert and reputation, and we've seen a lot of interesting public betting for the Preakness. He's a speed horse. He got to lead last time, but now he's got American Promise probably gunning it to his outside. Clever Against got speed. You're going a mile and 3/16. He's racing back in 2 weeks for, a lightly raced horse. I just don't think anything sets up for him here at all. And, they're throwing him in here at the last minute. So I don't have any interest in this horse.
Johnny, what about you? This is a $425,000 colt who was bought at the Keeneland September yearling sale. What do you think about goal oriented?
A couple of weeks ago, I was thinking, if Rodriguez gets in this race, he's going to be a serious contender because of the way the race shapes up. But here's goal oriented in, his spot. I did watch his race on Derby Day. I thought it was a good race. He showed versatility in the two races that he's had in the last 6 weeks. He closed in that 6 furlong maiden special weight at Santa Anita in April on a fast track. Then he goes to the lead on a wet track on Derby Day to mile and 16. I'm a little bit worried on the distance for this horse, but how can you not love the connections here? So I'm kind of with the guys. Maybe I'm not as negative as they are, but yeah, he's not one of my top horses.
He's kind of between where the guys are and you are, Johnny, because at least in my mind, because I worry about that distance factor too. I didn't see him running away at the end of that allowance race. It's in the slop. We know he can run in it because he just showed he can, but this is plan B for Baffert. I just don't see plan B working out. And by the way, Baffert's history in the Preakness, yeah, he's won Preaknesses a lot. I mean, he has the record, but mostly or most notably with Derby horses, and this was not one such. So goal-oriented, the number one, kind of on the back shelf for our group. And now we come to the favorites. So this one we can dive in head first with journalism. By Curlin, out of an Uncle Mo mare, Eclipse Thoroughbred Partners in the big group that has been assembled, including Coolmore. Umberto Rispoli will ride again for Michael McCarthy. He did get shuffled back to 10th place in the Derby, but always seemed to have a good spot along the rail. Made a strong close to finish second behind Sovereignty. I was standing with Ed DeRosa in the press room at the Derby, and the thought was that he supposedly, according to McCarthy, couldn't handle the slop. Imagine if he could have. Well, he did handle the slop actually quite well and acquitted himself well. This was his first loss in 5 races, though, having won the Los Al Futurity, the San Felipe, the Santa Anita Derby, and now the second in the Kentucky Derby. He comes in with 8-5 morning line odds and earnings of $1.6 million. Johnny, I'll start with you with journalism.
I thought he ran another solid race, and that's 3 in a row where he's worked extremely hard. On paper, he looks great. I don't believe McCarthy sticks him in this spot unless there's still some juice there. And so the way I size up the race, he probably sits around that 4th or 5th spot in his normal close, and then he has his normal closing kick. The wet track at Churchill didn't appear to really hurt his chances, but it didn't help him either. So I don't know what would have happened on a dry track that day. I just see him as he just better than all the horses in this race. How much better? Quite a bit when he's right. So, he deserves the short morning line price.
Interesting that his top buyer speed figure was a 108. That was back in the San Felipe. He's had the Santa Anita Derby and Kentucky Derby since. Ed?
Yeah, I mean, similar to Johnny, I just kind of think he's the best horse in the race. And the big question for me is what his win price will actually be. And, the Derby win betting was so different from the other pools. I'm definitely going into this week not really worrying about the trifecta and exacta. And if I can get 6-5 on journalism, I'm going to take it, and that's going to be my attempt at a score. Maybe even to the detriment of hitting a pick 5 or something like that, because I do think he'll be odds on in most of the exotic pools. And we saw he was about 2-1 in those pools in the Derby. He was 3-1 in the win pool. Sandman is back to take some money. We talked about Baffert. Who knows what they'll do with the local horse? I saw someone mention on social media, or they reminded that Fenwick, who was probably 200 to 1 to win the race, was 14 to 1 in the win pool. I mean, unfortunately, we don't get these opportunities anymore as daily bettors because of CRW. But a few big races a year, the pool is big enough, and the public attention is there to actually swing some of the odds in our favor. And it didn't work out with journalism, who was definitely my key in the Derby. But I was narrow there, and I don't really have that narrow opinion in the Preakness after journalism. So I'm hoping he's 6 to 5 or better in the win pool, and that's all I'm going to worry about.
Mark, where do you see him in terms of his odds, and where do you see him in terms of the race?
Well, on the odds, I think Ed's probably thought of giving this a lot more thought, I'm sure. I'm just curious, Ed, what do you think he's worth if you're hoping for 6 to 5?
Yeah, I mean 6 to 5 is my fair. I couldn't make even money work for the line. Those 5 points were valuable in other spots, but I mean, I think he's going to be 4 to 5 in bets like the Black Eyed Susan double, as a for instance. So to me, like, why bother there? Like, just take the 6 to 5 to win. And the Oaks Derby double was similar. I mean, he was hammered with good cheer. And I don't know who the favorite in the Black Eyed Susan will be. I think it's a little more wide open. So maybe if you really like something, you'll get the value. But yeah, I think he'll be odds on in every pool but win play show.
But I mean, if they run this race 10.
And I think the recency bias of, horses like Classic Empire and Epicenter losing, this horse is just better than they are, at least at this time of their career.
Okay. Mark, what do you think?
So I digress. Yeah. I mean, I'm with that. I think he's well, both the guys, he towers over this field to a large degree. I did want to mention, I ran the wet track numbers for all the horses. A couple of them have young sires, but they all perform pretty well over wet tracks, so that shouldn't be an issue according to our numbers. And as you referenced, Ron, I wrote an article for the site this morning talking about Kentucky Derby runner-ups coming back in the Preakness. Only 1 for 11. Exaggerator was the only winner to move up from the Derby. Epicenter and Bodemeister were second in the Derby, second in the Preakness. So I don't know if that stat kind of, I think that stat's a little sobering to say that sometimes these horses are runner-up in the Derby. They're coming in hoping for a better improvement, and maybe with 2 weeks and the chaos of another race, they don't necessarily show improvement. The problem here is there's just not a lot in this field, and journalism's a better horse. So I think I see where Ed's going with it, and I think that makes sense. I don't know that it's my style to like really pound this horse at 6 to 5. So I'll probably play him in exotics as the main horse and maybe pick one other to go with him. But he is the most likely winner. He probably wins this race 5 or 6 times out of 10. So the race certainly runs through him. He had a little bit of trouble last time, but he ran a great race. I don't think he, had any problem with the slop any more than any of the other horses did. And didn't want to mention his sire Curlin, done well in the Preakness, 5 starters in the Preakness, and he's sort of hit for the cycle if that works. Exaggerator 1, right on Curlin was second, Tenfold was third, Good Magic was fourth, and then previously mentioned Fenwick was ninth.
God bless Fenwick.
And Curlin won.
Curlin won this thing in 2007. In fact, I was down at the rail at a turf party watching Curlin being passed, and then looking at the screen and going, "Oh, he's not done yet." So that's still very impressive, seared in my memory moment as far as Preaknesses are concerned. So, all right, Ed, let me close with this, and Ed, I know we've kind of addressed it with you. Is there a shortest price at which you would not take journalism even on the nose to win? Any of you guys? Johnny, what would you say? What's too much of an underlay?
Even money's too low.
Okay.
And the reason I say that is because, as you noticed in the Derby, there's a lot of square money out there, and there'll be a lot of square money in this pool too. So, yeah, I think he should be I no less than 6 to 5.
Ed?
Yeah, I'd have to draw the line at even money. It's a tough race, two back. He'd certainly still be my key, as Mark said. And I do like a horse that I don't think is going to be second, third, or maybe even fourth choice. So if he is even money or lower, I just shift my focus to coupling him with that horse. But it's 6 to 5 or higher. It's on the nose.
Mark, same for
Period.
you?
I mean, I probably won't partake in either, but I mean, I think mathematically, if like I said, if you ran this race 10 times and, if we were able to bet it 10 times, even money's probably a fair bet on him, if not lower. The problem is there's only one Preakness. You only get to bet once. And if you want to put a couple hundred on the nose, you either win or you lose. And, you know, that's not much fun. And depending on how you look at it, but, yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think with all the public money, he probably is, 3-2 or something like that. And here, I'm just going to guess because people are going to bet Baffert and Sandman and some of these others. As a better though, I mean, he's the best horse, and I didn't mention, it really sets up for him. It really sets up for a horse coming off the pace, in my opinion. And there's not many other horses coming off the pace. Really, Sandman is the probably biggest closer, and I just don't think he's any threat to journalism. So. It is his race to lose. So I'd be looking at it, something fair around even money, even slightly less. Whether that interests me to actually make that bet, I don't know.
Right. We find out when the rubber meets the road. Right. Okay. Well, we're all on the same page here. I mean, it's the best horse, and then we'll just see if he can show it when the results pop up on Saturday. Number 3, American Promise. He's by Justify out of a Tappet mare. Owned by BC Stables, trained by 89-year-old Wayne Lucas, who won this race last year with Seize the Gray. Nick Juarez keeps the ride for the third race in a row. 2 back, it was a Virginia Derby victory. Wayne told me, he said, I'm going to train up to the Kentucky Derby with this horse. Finished a very distant 16th. But his strategy was, by not running him between the Virginia Derby and the Kentucky Derby, he wants to bring him to all 3 Triple Crown races. And so he has made good so far through the second jewel. 15-1 on the morning line for this horse, who's already run 10 times, 2 wins, a second, and a third. Mark, we'll start with you for American Promise.
Yeah, I mean, I like this horse in the Virginia Derby, and he ran great that day, but I just don't know that these races, he's got one race on his form that competes. He's going to face other speed with the Baffert runner to his inside, Clever again, Steve Asmussen runner on the outside. I mean, I know he's done this with, Seize the Gray and Oxbow, but I just don't see it here. I'm not really interested in this horse. I think there's too much speed pressured on both directions, and I just think they're kind of grasping at straws here.
Johnny?
Well, not a good Derby. I mean, got out of the gate okay, got bumped, he didn't like it, probably didn't like the mud in his face, so he called it a day. He was 12-1 at post time, which I thought was absolutely ridiculous.
I was trying to figure that out too.
Yeah, for this contest, there's no uncertainty for me that Lucas is sending this horse. If it's not to the lead, it's very close to the lead, and that's how this horse got its 2 wins. And Lucas has done that, as Mark mentioned, with Seize the Gray last year. So I expect this horse to run better, but I'm just not overly interested because the odds aren't going to be 20-1 like they should be. I'll keep looking to see if I want to use him in the exotics, but uh, he just Lucas burns me a lot. That's the problem.
Yeah.
He has through the years, so that's the reason that not throwing him out, but I don't actually like him.
I'm throwing him out. Ed, what about you? And he's 15-1 on the morning line. Fair?
I have 20 is fair, and that's to win. I think he's usable underneath. He's actually the horse I hinted at that if I need to pivot based on
Okay.
journalism's price. Uh, I'm getting shades of War of Will here in that I'm wondering if the Derby was a prep. D. Wayne Lucas does not sit on stakes horses for 7 weeks, just doesn't do it. And there were whispers of maybe an issue Derby week, and he ran. He was 12-1. I share in all of your questioning where that money came from, but he needed the race. I mean, you race in that barn. 7 weeks is a lifetime. So he should improve here. It's a smaller field. The pace dynamic should be more in his favor. I do think journalism is so much the best that, I can't get to American Promise as a strong win candidate. I think he can hang on though. I think he can improve off what we saw in the Derby for a barn that's a layoff. Like that is a legitimate layoff. And now he's second off the layoff in my mind. So I'm going to give him a shot underneath if he's 20-1.
His best buyers were a pair of 95s. One was in the Virginia Derby and one was in his maiden breaker. Actually, his maiden breaker came on his sixth attempt. That was back on December 29th in the mud at Oaklawn. So maybe you look at that he had a strong performance there in the mud. Not so strong in the slop in the Kentucky Derby. Let's get to what we always have to have in a Triple Crown race, a bit of a mystery horse. That's another way of saying international. Heart of Honor comes in from, well, England, kind of. That's where the trainer, Jamie Osborne, is from. That's where the jockey, Saffie Osborne, is from. She is Jamie's daughter. But the horse has done all his running other than his very first race in England. Ever since then, it's been in the Middle East. And he finished second in the UAE Derby, lost to Admire Daytona in that race. Previously was second in another race at Meydan that actually would be like a black type race for us over here. If you look at Time Form US, he has a pair of 93s, although there was not a rating for the UAE Derby, which I'm not even sure would have been as fast as those other two. So with all that said, the Honor AP colt out of a Scat Daddy mare is 12-1 on the morning line. Heart of Honor, Ed, go ahead and tell us what's in your crystal ball for him.
Well, I'm not backing this horse in any way, shape, or form. Nose by Admire Daytona, who was last in the Derby, and I'm sure got a call, but certainly at no point in the race ever threatened to split the field, let alone make a winning move. I'm going to trust that line. I don't really like the UAE horses typically anyway. So, based on Admire Daytona, based on kind of where the speed figures are projecting this horse is capable of, if he's ridden to be fourth or third, maybe he can be third or fourth, but I'm not worried about this horse at all from a win standpoint. Total toss for me.
Mark, what have you been able to glean in terms of researching Heart of Honor?
Yeah, I'm kind of similar with Ed. I mean, there's not really any chance to win here or the exacta. I think what he mentioned, the key is how is he ridden? I don't want to completely toss this horse from the tries and supers. The best thing I can say about him, I mean, he's never missed the exacta in 6 races. He's coming in off of 2 races at a mile and 3/16, but he was pretty forward in the UAE Derby. I guess you got to be forward in those races, but with the other speed and pressers in here, I would be way more interested in this horse if he was a deep closer. I don't know. There's not enough to get excited about this horse, even at the price. So I'm gonna pass on him.
Johnny, I know you've had a lot of diplomatic missions over to the Middle East negotiating oil deals and the like. Were you able to get an insight in Heart of Honor's pedigree and in his makeup and his past performances as you were meeting with potentates overseas?
I sent Trump over this morning to do a lot of that for me so that I could concentrate on
You
the
sent Trump.
podcast.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. Um, on paper, he looks like a player, but I'm not going to buy in until I see how he responds to the track. And if he does adhere to the track, there's no reason that he can't run with the secondary bunch here. So you mentioned Jamie Osborne's daughter, Safi. She's right. That's a great story, and they'll be
It
talking
is.
about that all day. I don't know of her as a rider. I know she's been riding for a while. This
Uh,
is not a very difficult race to run in. I mean, it's put the horse in the third, fourth spot and then make your one run because that's what it looks like for.
I looked her up on Racing Post just to see this year, and she's 5% winners.
There you
Uh,
go.
I
No,
mean,
not good.
hate to pick on the story, but I mean, I don't like when the international horses don't don't get a local jockey or an American jockey. Not trying to be egonistic or anything, but throw in that she's 5%. I mean, it's just another negative to me on the horse. Like she's not going to make a difference.
Yeah, I don't see it. They skipped the Derby. They could have gone to the Derby with this horse, and so instead they decided to point here. You could read into that what you wish. To me, I think they're just taking a nice trip over here, and maybe they have bigger plans or other plans as a result of what this race will be. But also the fact that this horse has never come close to getting a whiff of a wet track doesn't help at all either. So there's the first four. We'll get to 5 through 9, including maybe the most popular social media horse. We'll get into certainly the second choice. So we'll get into the others. But let's get into Johnny Avello, what he's up to at DK Horse.
Oh, thanks, Ronnie. We're running that King of the Track for the Preakness for the 150 running of the Preakness, and it's the same deal as last week that we did for the Derby. But last week we gave away $1 million, or 2 weeks ago we gave $1 million. You select a horse with your first $5 wager when you opt in. That allows you to participate in sharing 150,000 with all the others who selected that same winning horse. So 2 weeks ago, I mentioned we ran the same promo in the Derby. It was $1 million. So everyone who picked Sovereignty, they were given an additional. Remember, $5. That's your bet. Everyone who picked Sovereignty got an additional $291.
Wow.
Yeah, it was terrific.
Oh,
Yeah, so we'll also have some special options for every race, including the Preakness and the Black Eye Susan for both days. But you have to opt in, and I mean it's free. There's nothing to it. Just make a $5 bet and pick a horse. I mean it's free money, and if it turns out like last week's did, you might score a few more bucks than you did on your initial bet.
I don't think Johnny can guarantee 50 to 1 for you, but it certainly is enticing to hear that story, isn't it? So find out more about it. And if you want to get DK Horse loaded onto your phone or your tablet, you can do so with that app. Go to your app store, whether it's your Apple or your Google or whatever it might be, and look for DK Horse. It's part of DraftKings, and it's a great place to do your horse betting. So shop right now and find out more about what Johnny just told you about. I've got to get on here. It's DK Horse. Past performances heard on the Ron Flatter Racing Pod are provided by Brisnet, the only place where you can find Kieran speed points, the easy way to map the pace in any race, not just the Preakness, but for races all the time. Preakness and Black Eyed Susan Day cards are available right now at brisnet.com. This is the Hardcore Handicappers episode of the Ron Flatter Racing Pod, focusing on Preakness Stakes number 150 here at Pimlico. I should tell you, by the way, interestingly enough, because we do not have Sovereign in this race, it guarantees that this will be, let's see if I do the math right, 18, 19, 20, the 21st consecutive Triple Crown race in which we will have a different winner. That is a record for the modern era. Ron, when did the modern era start? 1919 with Sir Barton's sweep of the Triple Crown. If you go before that, yeah, you might find 50 or so different winners when horses weren't lining up for all three. But since 1919, we've never had a streak like this before. And so here we go with the number 5 horse. Can Pay Billy become that different horse? He's trained by Michael Gorham. He's ridden by Raul Mena. He's the local horse here. He is coming in off of a win in the Federico Tessio. It was a win and you're in over at Laurel, not far from here, which is supposedly hosting the Preakness next year, he said. That was on April 19th, going 1 1/8 miles, and he was near the lead and then on the lead coming into the stretch to win that one. He's by Improbable out of a Harlington mare owned by RKTN Racing, and he is 20-1 on the morning line. How much are you going to say about Pay Billy, Johnny Avello?
Obviously, he loves the Laurel track, but that does. Oh, that's a train going by.
It is?
Hear it?
No, but you could do the woo
Oh,
woo
okay.
if you'd like. Do a little Soul Train.
Anyway.
Love, peace, and soul.
Anyway, he does love that Laurel track, but does that transition to over to the Pimlico surface? So, winning at Federico Tessio gives him a free pass to the race. Even if he does like Pimlico track, he just appears to me to be too slow now. With that being said, every William, every Bill, every Billy is going to play this horse, and so I'm happy to hear that because he'll take some money and boost up some other prices.
What's the lyric from Sheryl Crow's song "Billy and Me"? Something without his son came up over Santa Monica Boulevard. Ed DeRosa, you can help me out with the lyrics. Sing along, Ed. What do you think of Pay Billy?
It's something about nothing like Billy and Me.
I'll look it up. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Talk horses. I'll look up lyrics here.
I like him more than Heart of Honor. So, when thinking about who I expect to be the longest shots in the exotic pools, because Pay Billy, local, Billy, whatever else, probably is going to take more money than he should in the whips, but I would think he'll be right there with Heart of Honor in terms of long shots in the exotics. I wouldn't completely dismiss him from using him over some others with a horse like Journalism to, try to actually get a score out of a even money favorite. Again, the win is pretty out of reach. I think I have him as even less likely than Heart of Honor from a win standpoint, but he's gone 9 furlongs and won. It seems like distance should be okay. As Mark noted, mud is as good as any from a pedigree standpoint. So I just don't want to stomp on him too much because I do think he's more capable of being in the number than Heart of Honor, though would be a gigantic upset were he to win.
Midlantic horse, third on debut in the slop at Delaware Park in a sprint, then switched to the turf and really did nothing there, went back to the dirt, broke his maiden on his 4th try, and since then is 4 for his last 5, but pretty much all at Laurel. Mark?
Yeah, just looking at some stats, the last 7 Tessio winners, their odds rank in the race, they finished worse than. You have to go back to 2011, Concealed Identity. He was number 11 in terms of the betting odds, and he finished 10th for a Tessio horse to actually outrun its odds rank in the Preakness. It's a great story. It's great to have local horses. I love that they're doing this. I love that he gets a free entry. I love that they're going. Why not? The horse has won 4 out of 5, but it's just a tough spot for him. I like him even less because he's a forward horse and he's got to deal with this other pace. And it's just, he's got to have to slug it out with the speed horses or tracking them. There's other pressers, and then just Journalism and Sandman and the other closers are waiting behind him to run by him at the end. So I just can't really use this horse at all.
Best buyer of 85 that came in the Federico Tessio for Pay Billy. He says his name is William. I'm sure he's Bill or Billy or Mac or Buddy, and he's plain ugly to me. And I wonder if he's ever had a day of fun in his whole life.
That's
all I
it.
want to do is
How many people named Billy are betting on this horse? It's like My Boy Jack, right?
Yeah, although My Boy Jack was certainly, there was reason to bet on him based on the rain that day. I'm not sure we can see that with this particular horse with Pay Billy. Now, what do we see with River Thames? 9-2 on the morning line. He's trained by Todd Pletcher, who is 0 for 10 in the Preakness. And frankly, you want to talk about 2 trainers who don't really like coming to the Preakness. It's Bill Mott, who's not bringing Sovereignty, and Todd Pletcher, who is bringing River Thames. Finished 3rd in the Bluegrass at Keeneland, and that was a career worst finish. Before that, lost by a neck to some horse named Sovereignty in the Fountain of Youth. 2 wins during the winter. He only has raced as a 3-year-old, and the 2 wins were at Gulfstream Park. He is 9-2 on the line, as mentioned. Irad Ortiz has the ride for the second time in a row. River Thames, Mark Midland, what do you think?
Well, I've got to pick a horse other than journalism to use that I'm interested in. This would be the one. You mentioned it. He ran a really nice race against Sovereignty, lost by a neck in the Fountain of Youth. And he ran third to Burnham Square and East Avenue, and after chasing a really hot pace in the Bluegrass. So, really, and then other than that, he's got a maiden win and allowance win. So I don't think he's done anything wrong. I think it's really interesting that, Pletcher bypasses the Derby, bypasses the Peter Pan, which is usually his kind of MO.
Right. Yeah.
And comes in here. I'm going to pull up those Pletcher stats in a second, but just from the sire standpoint, McLean's Music, one starter in the Preakness Cloud Computing one for Chad Brown at a nice price in 2017. But, as far as Pletcher, talking about him, he just doesn't run that many horses in the Preakness. I think he kind of got disinterested about 10 or 15 years ago. And other than Always Dreaming coming back, he's only ran a couple. So I think the fact that he kind of picked this out, this made sense for this horse. He might have some distance limitations where, the mile and a quarter, the Derby wasn't really in his wheelhouse. This is a little easier. I do worry about him being a little close, but for me, he's the horse. If journalism flounders, doesn't show up, what have you, he's the one who's going to be my backup, if you will. Super
Saver and Always Dreaming are the two Pletcher horses who won the Derby, then came here and each finished 8th in the Preakness. As far as River Thames is concerned, though, Ed, what do you think?
I'm pretty opposite of Mark here. I was happy to see him 9-2 on the morning line. I don't want to use this horse. I think he'll be a lot of people's alternatives. And I won't really need to use him if I get my price on journalism anyway. But in terms of who's next, I just think he's going to be too short. And, the development to me isn't, he's fast. Like the 4 races are good as a 2-year-old. He's yet to move forward. And I'm not sure the Preakness, even with the extra time, is the race that's going to get that out of him. McLean's Music, yes, does have the Preakness winner in Cloud Computing, who was out of an AP Indy mare. River Thames is out of a discreet cat mare. I just don't like this horse going beyond what he's already done. And if he's actually 9-2 or, comfortably the third choice, there's going to be some value elsewhere, even underneath. So I'm going to play against him.
Fountain of Youth, 95 buyer. That's his career high. Myself, Johnny, after I saw the Fountain of Youth, I just felt like this might be a 9 furlong horse. What do you think?
Well, first of all, I have a problem with the name. It's River Thames. Why River Thames?
Thames is how you say it in England. Thames is how you say it in Connecticut. Now, if you're in Connecticut,
that's not how I learned it in school. Anyway.
What school did you go to?
Yeah, well, TH is the. That's how I learned it. Anyway,
well, thank you.
This horse really looks the part, and if he did get in the Derby field, I didn't like him at all because I thought the distance would certainly compromise his chances. And I realize this is only a 1/16th less, but it's the overall field and the way the race sets up that helps his chances here. I do see him as a major exotics player. Anytime I see Irad on a horse that has had success and not a lot of negative success, that just opens my eyes. He gets the most out of any horse any quality horse, any crappy horse. So he's arguably one of the best riders in the world. So that's something that certainly has to be looked at. I did find it strange that Todd Pletcher has not won this race. So yeah, I don't know if I like him in the win, but I certainly do like him as part of the one of the top 3.
Okay. Like I said, I got distance questions with him. Ed, Mark, what do you think?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think at some point, you got to make a pick for second. So this is my second pick. But And then I just want to mention the Pletcher stats. So yeah, so Pletcher from 9 starters since 2001 is 0-0-0 in the Preakness. Um, Always Dreaming was eighth. And really since like I was talking about backing up since 2011, Dance City ran fifth. 5 years later, Stradivari ran fourth. 17 Always Dreaming ran eighth, and then 2021 Unbridled Honor, I think he was just kind of throw in, he ran sixth. So he just really hasn't come here with a serious horse. And I don't mean to say that this is some necessarily a grade one type super classic winning horse, but I think this is a good horse. He's a grade two horse. He may be a grade one horse down the road. I think this is the kind of horse that, win the Jim Dandy and those kinds of races and compete in the Haskell. And, if things didn't go well for journalism, that's the reason I'd be interested in him.
Yeah, I'm going to be taking a pass on this horse at my own risk, I guess, in terms of, again, distance. It's a simple little thing for me. Sandman is the number 7 horse. Griffin Johnson, the great social media influencer. I mean, he's got a little piece of this. We got it's Enter Sandman. We've got Metallica going on here. They sent the shirts to the team. Mark Cassie, the trainer, DJ Stable, and all the partners with John Velasquez riding. Tappet Colt. So you got a gray here. We always love to look at those grays, right? Out of a Distorted Humor mare. Finished 7th in the Kentucky Derby. Did have some trouble early on, and then did close from 13th to 7th at the end of the race, coming off of the win in the Arkansas Derby 2 back. And in fact, that one gave him his highest buyer of 99. 4-1 on the morning line for this one. And so we look at this $1.2 million Colt. I mean, that right there, that gets your attention a little bit, but also so does finishing 7th in the Kentucky Derby. Ed, kind of a late throw into the mix. I'm not sure how long they were thinking about this, but they did decide this weekend that they were coming to the Preakness. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think we saw in the Derby, there was a point Derby week where he was as low as 4-1. And he finally did drift to almost 6, but to be that close to journalism, I thought was wild. Certainly wasn't bet like that in the exotics. It's a common refrain I've been harping on all race, but it's so important if you're going to play this race to allocate your capital to where the overlaid positions are. And certainly, even if you love this horse, you have to be disappointed that he takes that kind of money, because he's just not going to offer what you'd want in the win pool. He's up against it. I mean, yeah, there's some pace in here. He can run on late. That's part of what makes him dangerous, is a complete throw out. But at the same time, that's what maybe makes him valuable if you're able to throw him out of the number and be right. Because even people who I know don't love him from a win standpoint, he's going to be overbet, I can't play him to win. They're falling over themselves to use him underneath. And it's like, well, that's what everyone else is doing. So he's one I'm going to be against on price. Obviously, there's races there that are good enough to be second or third. There's nothing I've seen from this horse that tells me he's as good as journalism, though. So I'm not worried about the win end, but I will gamble a little bit that we can beat him out of the trifecta.
All right, Johnny, here's a horse who has earned $1.25 million. What do you think about Sandman?
I don't think Mark Cassie wanted to make Sandman part of this field. I think he was pointing more towards the Belmont, but then they see that the field comes up short and somewhat soft, and they decide, well, maybe the money's easier here. I mean, the 7th place in the Derby wasn't horrible, but Ed's talking about the price at less than 6-1. Come on. I mean, I didn't like him much in the Derby, and his running style just may not be conducive to the Pimlico track. I did see, Terry Finley. I like him. He's a really nice guy and a good operator. He had some quotes that I read. He said something like, I hope so that the horse is going to be ready for the race. I hope so. We don't think, maybe not. We don't think he's tailing off. So God, it's not real positive dialogue there. So, yeah, I can't fault anybody for using them, but I don't have a real great feeling about them.
Johnny handicapping the connections. Mark, what do you think of Sandman?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with the guys, and we talked about before the Derby that he was coming in off of Oaklawn races where he was kind of dressed up. He had just gigantic paces to run into, and managed a third and then a first. And you know, the Derby was kind of lackluster. The problem here, he's going to be way over bet, but it is going to sit up for closers, and I think there's a temptation that people are going to put him right in there in second. I'm with Ed. I, First of all, I'm no way going to play this horse in the exacta. I just think he's over bet. He's too slow. Even with the setup, I'm going to play others to beat him. If I do get my long shot, maybe in second, I probably will use him in third just because there's not that many horses in the race. There's only 9 horses in the race, and we've got, 3 speed, maybe speed horses and a couple other pressers. So if the pace does get hot, he's going to, just by process of elimination, have to run fourth or third. So I probably will have some defensive plays, but yeah, he's just a bad bet, and he's another one that adds to the win price on journalism.
I'm going to steer clear of him, at least in terms of exotics, unless I get really, really deep with him. But certainly, I could see him not hitting the board. In fact, I'm going to count on it. Let's get to the number 8 horse, and that is Clever Again. Steve Asmussen has trained 2 winners in this race, although it's been a while since Curlin and Rachel Alexandra. Here's a colt who is by American Pharoah. You might have heard of him. Winchell Thoroughbreds, the owner, along with the Coolmore folks who have bought in. Here's a speed horse, won his last 2, being on the lead, broke his maiden on the second try. He did race in 2024 and then had forever off before he came back and was a winner his first time as a 3-year-old, and then followed that with a victory by 4 lengths in the Hot Springs Stakes, a $200,000 race in March at Oaklawn. But he's had time off since March 30th. He got a 101 buyer in that one. Jose Ortiz will be up for the 3rd time in a row on this horse. I kind of like him, and I want to find out, Mark, do you kind of like Clever Again?
No.
Okay.
I mean, he's won on the lead at Oaklawn. He's obviously a nice horse, and he's kind of been pointed and been off for this race since the end of March. So I think that's a positive sign. And Jose Ortiz is up for Steve Asmussen. I just don't like that he's got, American Promise as other speed. We've got the Bavert horse as other speed. I do think Jose is a big plus. I think Nick Juarez is on American Promise. I could see maybe Jose just trying to send with this horse and trying to wrestle the lead away. And I think if he did, that could make him a little bit more dangerous. But I just don't really like the setup. I will say I do think what's interesting about River Thames, Clever Again, and Gosker is they're 3 horses that are sort of like, in my mind, like grade 2 type horses that have been pointed for this race for a month. Everything else is kind of thrown in here last minute, or second in the Derby, 7th in the Derby. We're going to take another shot. We ran good on Derby day. And so I do think I'm really interested in how those 3 do. But I don't like the setup for them, and I'm just going to look elsewhere.
All right. Ed, where are you looking with Clever Again?
Of the 3 that are sort of bunched as that second choice, or 4, I guess, with the Baffert as well, I would say I like Clever Again best. Certainly agree with Mark on the pace dynamics. That's a little wrinkle in the plan. But given the pedigree, I don't see any reason why he should stop. And I'm kind of wondering, being owned by Winchell, if Kentucky Downs isn't on the radar if these grade 1s on dirt don't work out, because that is, I mean, American Pharoah, we know those can run on anything. And you look at the Dam being out of a Galileo mare, sky would seem the limit. So we'll see what happens after this, but the try makes sense. The price at 5-1 would be right. I kind of went into this thinking he's the 2nd most likely winner. So if the board disagrees with my assessment, that means there is a play possibility here, especially if, if journalism actually does take odds on money, which is possible. I mean, no one would be shocked if he's 4 to 5. To me, Clever Again would probably be the one I want to try at the price because of that. So, I'm not thrilled because I like journalism so much, but of the four who are clearly the second tier behind journalism, I do like Clever Again best.
Okay, so you and I are looking at Clever Again, at least from the angle of you would certainly give him a look. 5-1, the morning
I
line
want to be
price.
clever once.
Hey, yeah, you and me both, from your lips to God's ears. Johnny, 5-1 on the morning line. I mean, and that raises an eyebrow or two for a horse who is so lightly raced. But what do you think of Clever Again?
It appears he's definitely going to go out, and the distance shouldn't be an issue because this horse is bred nicely. He looks like a really nice animal. And I agree with Ed that I believe he's going to do really well on grass at some point. He's that's where I think he's bred the best, but that's another day. I don't see him as the winner here, but I do see him somewhere in the top four. But I also believe that, you might be asking a little bit too much here for the horse that's lightly raced. But still, if you're betting tries and supers, he's a must.
We haven't really said much about the slop factor with him, right? I mean, if we're talking about turf, or are we talking about firm turf? We talking about yielding turf? Well, what about sloppy dirt? I mean, any concerns there?
Shouldn't be.
Okay. All right.
No, I don't think so.
I mean, if you were the favorite, you might look for a reason to be more against, but
Okay. We know, and by the way, we know Galileos could run on a lot of different kinds of turf surfaces over in Europe. So there's that.
Well, and I just wanted to add, like we've seen and we saw with Seize the Gray, getting to the lead, especially in the slop, could be a big advantage. So I do think for me, there's a little bit of wild card between goal oriented, American Promise, and Clever Again. And I don't know that Clever Again is fastest on paper, but again, Jose could take him out. If he does get to the lead, then yeah, I think he's really dangerous to hold on for second or something like that.
To the 9 horse. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was going to say it's an old school classic profile. I mean, this horse ran in that a 2-year-old baby race at Keeneland, and here we are, legitimate, no distance questions in a classic. But the fact that this horse tracked the pace at 4.5 as an April 2-year-old, there's some brilliance there. So I get the shot because you have a classic winner by American Pharaoh out of a Galileo mare. The stallion potential is through the roof. I would dare say as much or more as journalism and sovereignty. So I get why they're here and they belong.
$500,000 yearling purchase at number 8 in the Preakness. Number 9 is Gosker. This race has but 3 graded stakes winners, the fewest since graded stakes were established in 1973 to be entered into a Preakness. Tied for that, actually. There have been several years with only 3. Gosker is one of them. We tend to forget that Gosker won the Grade 3 Lexington. That was his most recent appearance. That was April 12th. Wasn't his best race, according to his buyers. That would have been his maiden breaker back in February at Gulfstream, going a mile and getting an 88. He's by Nyquist out of a Tappet mare. 20-1 on the morning line for Brendan Walsh and Luis Saez. They are the connections with Harvey Clark being the breeder and the owner, and Ed DeRosa being the handicapper.
Ron, I got to ask, you have the PPs in front of you?
I do.
Look who won his career debut.
Ain't No Disco. Oh,
Ain't No Country Club either.
That's right. So it's all Sheryl Crow. It's all about Sheryl Crow here.
Pretty incredible that song would come up twice.
Twice.
I thought that Lexington was strong in the moment. I was a Bullard fan, and he didn't fire that day, and was briefly under consideration here. I'm guessing he may have shown up if journalism didn't for the same trainer. The number came back lighter than my eyes told me the performance was. Which I guess is good because like 20 to 1 to me seems okay on this horse. Given that River Thames and Sandman are two that, and the Baffert for that matter, are three horses that I don't think need to be second or third behind Journalism, especially. To me, Gosker is playable in that way at the price. I'm going to trust the numbers from a win standpoint, and not really excited about them from there, especially because again in the win pool, I think everyone's going to be an underlay except maybe Journalism based on what we saw in the Derby. But this horse is usable underneath.
Johnny?
Run three really nice races, and it wasn't, any particular track because he did it again at both Gulfstream and Keeneland. His workouts are really fast, at Keeneland, and his style kind of fits this race. The morning line odds maker made him and Pay Billy the same odds. I just don't see it that way at all. So
I think there may have been a 20 to 1 ceiling edict.
okay, well, maybe Pay Billy should have been 30 and he should have been 15. But if the odds maker needed to make, if he needed to put it in at 16, 18 to 1 range. But anyway, definitely usable.
Okay. Mark?
Yeah, this is the bet for me in the Preakness. I think there's probably two ways to make money on this race. Ed mentioned one of them, which is just bet Journalism on the nose. Like I said, that's not really my style to, try to put a bunch to win on a 6-5 horse. To me, very likely outcome in this race is the exact 2-9. And so we've got this horse at 20 to 1 morning line. Maybe it goes off at 15. I agree with Johnny. That morning line's pretty high, but I'm hoping that Louis Size can take this horse back a little further. I think he was a little forward in Lexington because you have that short stretch. Went back and watched the Lexington again. He kind of rated in third or fourth. Short stretch, he came on and sort of blew the doors off those horses. Like Ed said, I think the numbers may be a little light compared to what he did visually. It looked very nice, very impressive. He's working great. He's done nothing wrong. And I think if he can just kind of let the speed go and let everything kind of clear out, he can get a really nice spot mid pack. If Journalism runs his race, I don't agree this horse isn't a win candidate, but I think he can run by everybody for second. You cash a 2-9 exacta. I think you get a nice exact out of it. And then I would just do a little backup with him in third. So do Journalism to win, do Gosker in third in the trifecta. And I guess maybe sprinkle in River Thames, Sandman, and Clever again in second, and try to pick up the try that way.
Mark, you and I are on the same page. So on the same page with Gosker. I agree with you all the way around here. And I think, the number might not have been impressive, but how he won the Lexington, I think really, really could fit in here. By the way, he is named for Johnny, your old Major League Baseball teammate when you were playing in the bigs. Jim Gosker, you might have played with him with the Seattle Pilots when you and Jim Bouton were collaborating on the book Ball 4. He also played for the Kansas City and Oakland A's and Montreal Expos, speaking of teams that don't exist anymore. Sort of. All right. Apologies to Sacramento and Milwaukee and to Washington and all those places. All right. That gets us through all of the 9 horses. We're going to find out from each of the hardcore handicappers the best way to play the Preakness, at least on their tickets. But before we get too far along in that, the best way you should be betting horses is to use the tools available to you at horseracing.nation.com. And in fact, that brings us to you, Ed DeRosa.
Oh, well, great. Well, I've extolled the virtues of the first time power ratings report plenty, so I'll just only mention it. But another report we have among our suite of products is the Sire Moves report, and that could be apropos. Rain is expected throughout Preakness week. So for those playing Pimlico Thursday, Black Eyed Susan Day, and especially Preakness Day, Sire Moves report invaluable, not only because it does have off-track figures, it addresses off the turf as well, but really looks at dirt to turf moves and turf to dirt, which this is the time of year with 3-year-olds. There's a lot of stakes on Saturday for 3-year-olds sprinting on dirt, routing on turf. So different variables, horsemen trying different things, and sire moves really gives you a peek at what sires could be beneficial for or negative. And I find that stuff not only fascinating, but more importantly, good for the pocketbook, because there are some, when you see the stats on the sire move in black and white, there's no way you would bet that horse is at a low price, and it happens every day. And the numbers speak for themselves. The efficacy holds up. So rain or shine, the sire moves report is great because there's dirt and turf, but especially with the wet weather, it covers you. It covers all the bases.
And you can find Sire Moves Report when you go to picks.horseracingnation.com. Go up where it says HRN Pro Reports and click that, and you'll see the menu. And then you'll see right there, Sire Moves Report. And let me give you another little hint here. You can get the Sire Moves Report for a card for a day for $5.99. Go to the bottom of the page, and you'll see you can get a Sire Moves Report subscription for only $19.99 a month. So scroll on down, you'll find some true value there if you like the Sire Moves Report. But even if you're just playing it for the Preakness, give it a look along with all of our tools. The Sire Moves Report exclusively at Picks, P-I-C-K-S, picks.horseracingnation.com. This is the Ron Flatter Racing Pod, normally heard Fridays, this pop-up edition featuring our hardcore handicappers previewing the Preakness. Our regular edition from here at Pimlico on Friday will feature Paddock Prince handicapper David Levitch with his look at the Black-Eyed Susan and the Preakness Stakes, as well as a cast of folks who are going to weather the storms over at the Stakes Barn here at Pimlico. And so you'll find out in social media who will be on there, or you can just find out by listening on Friday. Where you found this podcast, you'll find the next one. And if you're listening to this podcast and want to see us, it'll be available on YouTube starting on, let's see now, Wednesday, right? Have I got that right? I'm kind of blurring together what day of the week this is. And if you're watching on YouTube and you're finding it difficult to drive your car while watching it, download the podcast. You can go wherever you get your podcast, Apple and Google and Spotify and all those good things. All right. Let's see now. We're going to go ahead and wrap this up now with the hardcore handicappers to find out their best way to play the Preakness Stakes, the 150th edition here at Pimlico. And actually joining us from near San Diego in Carlsbad, California today, not his normal Vegas haunt, from DK Horse, Johnny Avello.
Yes. Well, journalism, I will be looking to play him on the win side. I will also be looking to play him on the place side. You notice how these big races, sometimes you get some pretty good value in those place and show pools. Now, the Derby is one of the best for that. I mean, you can really get a tremendous price that you wouldn't normally get. And with that breakage the way it is, it's even better. So I will look at the place pools here to see if, I will use journalism there. As far as exactas are concerned, I'll use him on top with a few horses, goal-oriented, heart of heart, Thames, and Clever Again, and probably Gosker. A couple of horses I will use on top of him, just in case, not many, probably Clever Again, Gosker, and Thames. So if I do elect to play the tries and the supers, of course, there's a lot of other to sprinkle in there.
We have seen his fascinating stories this week, analyzing some of the numbers and whether it's odds or how Derby horses do coming into the Preakness. But let's see how he fashions his ticket. Horse Racing Nation boss Mark Midland.
All right, how about a $50 play, something like that? So I would just do, like I mentioned, 2-9 exacta. So journalism over Gosker, maybe a $25 straight exacta, and then you could do maybe a $10 trifecta, journalism in first, with River Thames and Clever Again second, and Gosker in third. So that's another $20. And then maybe for a couple bucks, I would back it up with River Thames to win, and journalism or Clever Again in second, and Gosker in third. So that's about, I think, $49. And if you want to use Sandman in second, you can. I'm gonna kind of try to hold my nose and again, he's a nice horse and he fits in this race from a entry standpoint. Why not take a shot here? But from a betting standpoint, just not a great bet on the odds. So I'm gonna try to play against Sandman.
If you're watching on YouTube, we see he's wearing the uniform of the day here at Pimlico. He's there in front of the bricks in Louisville, and he's got the fair odds all the time at Horse Racing Nation. Ed DeRosa, your preferred ticket for Preakness 150.
Yeah, ticket is apropos, singular. I'm going to put the fair odds to the test, and 6 to 5 or higher. It's going on journalism. Just think he's the best horse, and there are maybe 3 races out of the year where he would be more than even money. I think if this were the Travers, he'd be odds on. Certainly, if it were any sort of grade 2 or grade 3 prep race for another race against the same group, he'd be odds on. So I'm going to trust the fair odds read. And I'll extend that to past journalism. Let's say that the market catches up and is more efficient than we're expecting. If he is odds on, then there will be value somewhere among my fair odds for sure. And I'm expecting that would be Clever again. I wouldn't be as bullish with the pocketbook. Certainly would scale my win wager down. But I think based on what we saw in the Derby and what we've seen in recent Preaknesses, the win pull is where it's at in terms of taking advantage of an inefficiency. So journalism for me, 6 to 5 or higher.
Love journalism, keying journalism with Clever again and Gosker. I'll put those two underneath, and maybe just to back myself up a little less money on just the box trifecta or box exacta box trifecta with all three. So that's how we're playing the Preakness.
Ron,
yes, sir.
Forgot to ask Ed the key question.
Oh, what's that?
Oh,
if you get your price on journalism, what are we betting? Are we betting the house, the farm, the car, the rent, or the wallet? That's a big difference.
Yeah.
Okay.
None of the early part of that question, but
okay.
And I'm a gambler. We've all seen it at the craps table or a slot machine. If it's been a really good weekend, I'll go for it. And if it hasn't, I'll watch him win off by 10 and be like, oh, I wish I had more money on him.
I'll interpret that as half of your Preakness bankroll. I mean, for the day. Is that what we're talking about?
I'll definitely set aside half. Yeah, I think that's fair.
All right. I would say,
and if the other half grows, then we'll probably let it ride.
Sweet.
I would say he's probably betting the shed because that's where it's going to take him if it doesn't get there.
Certainly the mother-in-law shed.
The sheds can be expensive, and now with tariffs it's going up.
They're not cheap.
You know what you have to do? You have to have them sent to you. You have to have your shed sent to you so that you don't have to run right out. You can concentrate on the races. And if you lose, you'll be happy that they're
waiting for him.
No, they'll be happy that they shit your shed.
No.
On that note, thank you again to Johnny Avello, Ed DeRosa, and Mark Midland with the Hardcore Handicappers. Our regular episode on Friday from here at Pimlico, as mentioned, will feature the handicapping of Paddock Prince David Levitch and connections for some of the 9 horses who will be racing here for the black-eyed Susans that they will drape around, even though they're daisies painted black. Be that as it may, thank you again for listening. I'm Ron Flatter. We don't know what we are fighting for, but I know that they don't want us here.